So maybe they live in a region called the fragrant coast. But why don't we let's let this percolate. Let's sit with this for a while. See how it feels. Schwa. Whenever someone comes up with a good question like this, I want to know the answer as well. Let's look at the Conlang project that we've been working on over the past 2 weeks, because we need to develop it more. Last time, so if you've been following along so far, last time we concocted a fable, also involving a raven, interestingly enough. We concocted a fable in the language. We had to develop quite a lot of vocabulary and quite a lot of grammar to get there. And what happened was we succeeded. And so we have a nice fable, which I think let's read the fable right now, because it's fun, and because for those of you who are just joining us, I'd like you to see the general vibe of this language, and then we can start to develop it a little bit more. Okay, so let's get the correct orientation, and let's move me over here for now so that you can see everything. And maybe I think 200% is the way to go. Okay, so we have Chaska papayawi. Chaska skuptaifu fazana si yakam payawi kusizik wanfi. Lunanavia masfa ivu mamasliku afituch. Uzaska snakut sikuli kumimna. Lukunavidi aliba pa naklabi si papalwi malak sunavi si sahna si payawi ivu sumani wintu uk. Lu nanafia payawi ivu masliku lavi wintu. Ugabin lu kilaya pastansi mahuhum si lu antuk timimas. Pafamantu ma patunlaka masumani nal tununaspa. Lu kunavidi palan laksisiva yavalu pahinu lumulakwa wansim. Lu nanafia scham skazik. Palu fakuli susuva uyu mamakal. So, yeah, this language is a lot of fun. It has some of the fun aspects of it that I find: 3 vowels, three phonemic vowels, e, u, a. We have 2 uvular consonants, which are represented orthographically by Q and X. So we have the voiceless uvular stop, k, and we have the voiceless uvular fricative, h. And what happens to stops and fricatives that are intervocalic in this language is that they voice allophonically, much like fricatives did in Old English. If you're familiar with that, we don't have any voicing distinction on obstruents, so that is stops and fricatives in this language. But what we do have is we have allophonic voicing. So whenever a stop or a fricative is in an environment conducive to voicing, so between 2 vowels, in this case, we will voice it. And I'm not very good at doing this, so in my little recitation there, I noticed there were several instances in which I messed that up. But practice makes perfect. So we'll get some more practice today for sure. But today, we are going to do 2 things. 1, we need a name for this language. We have no name. This is like the language with no name. It's still, the Google Sheet's even called Stream 2021-1207. This cannot stand. And so we need to come up with a name for this language. And so maybe we can start to think about where do language names come from? Language names, and let's get out our lexicon here so we can make quick reference to things. Language names often come from words that just mean speech or real speech, real language. People are often fairly ethnocentric, throughout history, and they'll talk about their own group as the real people or just people, and their speech as real speech. And so that's one avenue that we could go down. We could come up with a word for people and just give the language the name of the people. This is where we get Deutsch, the word for German, from an old word meaning of the people. So we could do something like that. Alternatively, if we are thinking in terms of world building for this, we can start to wonder, where do these people live? Do they live in a vast plain? Do they live in a forest? Maybe we can give a name to this place and then call the language after that. So if anyone has any interesting ideas on this front, please put them in the chat. Otherwise, I will start to generate some potential candidates. So let's bring up a second window here, so that we can see more than one thing at once. We've got our grammatical stuff here, our lexicon here, and you can see everything. I feel good. Okay, so you can see everything. Let's start coming up with some ideas. I don't think we have any particular word for people or speech yet, do we? I don't think so. So we're wide open. I'm going to start to come up with some ideas. So let's generate some word forms. Something like Tuval, that's valid. Swacha, swacham. What else could we do? We could do something like lamak. We could do something like koldi. We could do something like walan. Do we have anything else? Walanka. But that's valid, right? We can do that. Yeah, we have a complicated enough syllable structure to allow for these kinds of things. Walanka, Hodi, Lamak, Swacham, Tuval. Okay, so they live on a coastline with a temperate climate. Okay, let's roll with that. So maybe they live in a place. Do we have something like coast? I don't think so. Apologies for the scrolling. So maybe we need a word for coast. And for some reason I like this fragrant idea. What if they lived somewhere called the Fragrant Coast, or the Fragrant Wood, or something like that? Tamiya coast. Okay, we need to put that in the opposite color. Bolding rather. Coast, Tamiya. Okay, so if we had Tamiya, so maybe they live in a region called the fragrant coast. Let's try that. Let's give ourselves some. How did we do? I have to remind myself. The fragrant. Yes. Okay. So we have this C construction. So Yustaku C Tamiya. Obviously, it's going to be way too long for a name, but just to give us something to start with. And we have Fragrant Coast. Yustaku C Tamiya. I like the way that sounds quite a lot. What if we took this and did a sort of I have this impulse to kind of take this and abbreviate it. So in some languages, it's possible to take the first syllable of a morpheme or one syllable of a particular morpheme and use it as an abbreviation for the whole thing. So what if we had, instead of yustaku sitamiya, we had something like yustam, which were a short form for yus taku. So here's the form we take, yustaku sitamiya. And yustam is actually a valid shape here. So yustam could be the name for the region. Maybe a long time ago it meant the fragrant coast, and now it's become worn down, and you can still see remnants of it in the word yustaku and tamiya. Maybe that's what happened. Yustam. And because it is an adjective, we would need some morphology on the end. Yustamiya. I like that. I think we can use that. Yustamiya. Okay. So yustamiya, and we could call the language, so the place could be yustamiya. The language in the language itself might be yustamiya something. Yustamiya speech, maybe something like yustamiya. I'd like a short word for speech. Yustamiya, I don't know. Something like yustamiya. We want to just show off the unique parts of this language in the name, if possible. So I want a Q in here. Yustamiya kal, or something like that. So this would be fragrant coast language. Yustamiya kal. But, maybe as an exonym, people might just call it yustamiya. An exonym being what people who aren't speakers, who aren't part of this community, call it. I dig this. Yustamiya kal. So the fragrant coast language. Okay. Why don't we let's let this percolate. Let's sit with this for a while. See how it feels. But I might go ahead and change the name of the sheet. And let's put in our new words here. Yustamiya, fragrant coast, place name, and kal is going to be our word for speech language. Okay, and then we have some other word forms, which let's venture down to the bottom. Let's just put them in. We don't know what we're going to do with them yet. They'll come in handy, I'm sure, soon. Okay, so we have yustamiya kal. And we have, I should put that into the lexicon as well. Yustamiya. We might want to write it with a Y in the orthography. For those who are not hip to the IPA scene, we can make that decision later. Yustamiya kal. Cool. Okay, that's number 1 on the agenda done today. We have only two things. So number 1 is the name. That's done. Excellent. We can get rid of it. I thought we'd work backwards and make a proto-language for this language. So this is kind of not the way that it's often done. When people are interested in making historically related languages, what they'll do is they'll usually make the proto-language first and then derive the descendant languages. But you can also go the other way, and you can sort of just keep bouncing back and forth between them. And I find the more you do that, the more naturalistic your language ends up feeling. So let's do it. So we have this language. Let's look at our phonology, because this is mostly going to be phonological in nature, these investigations. And what we want to do here is say etymology. So we need to figure out what this language used to be like. One thing that occurs to me is that perhaps this language used to be not a language with a 3-vowel system and this kind of syllable structure, but what if it used to be a language with a much more, or at least a moderately more elaborate vowel system? So what if it were had been a 5-vowel system? So this is the proto-language, and rigid CV structure. What would that end up looking like? So we would have any kind of consonant cluster. Any consonant cluster would have to be broken up, and we would have more vowels in the original than we have now. And so we would have to have some way of deriving the 3 that we have now from the 5 we used to have. So let's see. Let's take an example of a word that is kind of a good. So we can start with qal, which is our word for speech. So originally this may have been something like qala. And then the question is, if it had been qala, how come we still have forms like fazana, which, how do we distinguish between these two cases if we're going to be deleting the final vowels for some and not others? And this is where our larger vowel system can come in handy. So maybe only there were 2 things or what we had in the proto-language was an a, but there were 2 of them, so that they could be treated differently. So we could call them a1 and a2, and only a1 got deleted. Or maybe this would be something, I think probably more realistic, if I could find where my IPA keyboard is. What if it were a schwa? So we're perfectly happy with having schwas drop out. We just saw a lot of that in French. So what if we have qala and fazana as our proto forms? And so wherever we have a consonant cluster like aptuma, we might have something like apatuma. So that's an option, apatuma. And then these schwas just drop out. That's one thing we could do. Another thing we could do is this wouldn't give us a 5-vowel, that would give us a 4-vowel system, a, I, U, schwa. What if we had a setup like this? Just going to move some windows so I can see everything properly. What if we had a system like this? So we have a, I, O, U in the proto-language. So we can just move that here. And let's just say a, I, U. We'll maintain for now. We may not want to do that, but... And then we have schwa, which drops out. So yeah, we would have a 6-vowel system then. So schwa will drop out and just give us nothing. Maybe A will give us E, and O will give us U. That's kind of fine. So this is the proto, and this is modern. Yeah, I don't know. There's something about this. Let's put the modern forms on the right so that we can not mess with our left to right order brain, our left to right order reading brains, provided that that's indeed what we have. I certainly do. So we have our proto form. This is just a bit too, I don't know, it's not fun enough for me. What I would like to do is have something, I want to put in a chain shift, essentially. I want this proto language to be much more different. So what if instead of, so we have O going to U like we had in French. We had, oops, no, sorry, I don't want to remove these. I want to remove these. So we have O going to U in French, or as in French. We have U going to E, which this is kind of like a change that you see in Greek. Actually, if we use Greek as a model, we could have A go to E as well, E go to E, U go to E. So we have this convergence of all these vowels on E. And then how do we get this schwa issue dealt with? Maybe we don't need a schwa. Maybe what we need is we need to use stress or something to get these vowels. Or maybe we need to use vowel length. I don't know. This is a good question. Why don't we stick with the schwa for now? I'm going back and forth on this. This is kind of the process. So we have a sort of a very different vowel system in the proto-language than we do in the modern language. So let's see how we can reconcile these things. So the only thing I think we need to change is apatuma. It should be apatoma, which would give us aptuma. Then we can see some other ones like justamiya. So let's do yustaku first. Yustaku, and I'm just putting things everywhere. I'm very disorganized, sorry. Yustaku would be something like to give us modern yustaku. Let's give us some space here. Here. There we go. Okay, so yustaku, we would have to get, our y wouldn't change, our u would be o, our s would be s, our nothing would be schwa, our t would be t, so yosatako would be the ancestral form. Yosatako. That's cool. Let's see if we have another one. Let's find one like naklapi, to dive. So how does this start? Probably would have to be something like ko. Oops. Thought I had that in the clipboard still. Nope. Nakalap. And then we have a choice. We could have E, A, or U in the proto-language. And so what if we had something like nakalapu? That would work. Okay, so we've got some differences here. Yosatako, nakalapu, kala, fazana. I don't know if this allophonic voicing would have gone would have been there in the proto-language. Let's say no for now. Fasana, apatoma, yosatako. Question from Ben: am I aware of any languages that diphthongized e and o to I and ow, respectively? Off the top of my head, no. I can think of a few that did the other way around. Not off the top of my head, no. What we could do, and I'd do this off screen because it would require a lot of scrambling, but I could look up in the index Diachronica, which is a really great resource for diachronic conlangers. You can go and look up all sorts of different sound changes that have been proposed in the literature, but yeah, that I don't think would be very fun for you to watch me search that up. So I'll do that, and I'll put in a comment whether I can find any instances of that, Because I'm curious now too. Whenever someone comes up with a good question like this, I want to know the answer as well. Okay, so let's make the consonants a little weird too. Or not weird. They're not weird. They're just different. So let's make some consonant changes as well. So we have what are we working with here for consonants? We're looking at this system. I almost want the uvulars to be kind of special for our language. So let's not have uvulars in the proto-language. And let's do something which I did see. I did a little bit of prep for this this historical segment here, and I looked up and I did find one instance where we get uvulars from labialized velars, which that sounds kind of fun. Let's see what we can. Let's see if we can employ that trick. Okay, so we have, going down here, we have Q and we have Q and H coming from Qua and Hua. So then let's see how this changes our what's it called? Our reconstructions. So instead of Kala, we have Kuala. Instead of Fasana stays the same, Apatoma stays the same. Nakalapu would become Nakwalapu. Okay, that's kind of cool. Let's see if we can find another language another one that would have some changes here. Sachna, plant. So here we would have Sahwana. Sahwana. Okay, that's kind of cool. And anything else that's got a lot of changes in it, so we can show this off. Scham. Here we would have S, schwa, labialized velar, fricative, sahwama. Oh, that's cool. Sahwama, turning into scham. Okay, but this is still pretty straightforward. Is there anything else we can do to make this a little bit more interesting? So we have, so anything else we can do to make this a little bit more interesting? Kwalapu. Maybe we could have it so that we could have, let's work on some morphology that worked in the proto-language that becomes irregular for us. So let's say that we have a fairly isolating or a fairly analytic language in the modern language, but let's say that was not necessarily the case in the proto-language, and let's do some derivation. So let's look at Sunav. Let's look at Snakut. So Snakut means foolish. So how does this come into how does this get reconstructed to Sana quota? Sanaquota. And maybe we have this sa, which is a prefix. That means, do we have anything else that we could use for this? Snakot, Slufi, Skasik, Sizik. Ah, okay. So what if we had this sa as a prefix that meant bad or evil, just or bad in some way, and we had Yeah, okay, let's use this. So we have this sa prefix, which means bad. And then we have naquota, which means wise. I don't know. Sometimes I run out of places to write things all too often. Let's go down here. Okay, so we have this bad prefix and then the wise. And we have sinaquota, which means so wise but in a bad way, so foolish. So we have this, our word snakut. We have also presumably nakut, which means wise, although that may not remain in the language in the present form. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. We don't have to make up our mind on that right now. And then let's say that when sa, so let's say that when sa is unstressed, it deletes. When is unstressed, it deletes. But when it's stressed, it turns into e like everything else. So delete or e stressed. So we're still going to work through the consequences of this, because we then have to worry, hey, wait, we're talking about stress. We never talked about stress before. What's going on there? But we will get there. Maybe not today, but we will get there. So we have this word sizik, which means evil. I'd like to derive that from this prefix too. So we have sa plus maybe something like sasuka. And suka could be good. So this is kind of like ungood. So this is evil, right? Rather, suka on its own is good. And this turns into seek. And because this is stressed, we're just gonna declare that for some reason this is stressed in the prefix here, but not here. We'll figure out why soon. So that's why becomes e in this language, in this word. Sorry, sasuka, sisik, sinaquota, snakut. Or sonaquota, maybe. So let's just, before we end, because I see we are really getting close to time, let's think a little bit about how stress worked in the proto-language. So I want to say that we have anti-penultimate stress in this language, in the proto-language. So we have how we do this is you ignore the last syllable, and then you make a foot out of the previous two syllables. So and then assign stress to the left edge of that. So naquota, and that's how we will avoid having to turn these into e. I wonder if we can get rid of another vowel this way. I wonder if we can we can unify e with, say, a, or sorry, unify schwa with a, and so we can get this variable outcome. That's something that I might ponder and do next time, but I want to catch up with isig means will or intent. Yeah, okay, that's good. So instead of so suka, this protoform suka means will. So sasuka, or sosuka rather, is bad will. Do we have sahwama? So we're going to have a problem because sahwama would want to have stress here. Well, what if we had a length distinction? Then we wouldn't have to worry about it. So what if we had sehwama, or maybe we have vowels in hiatus, so sehwaama, and so then we would get the stress on sehwaama, and then we would, yes, okay, that would work. So the nice thing about this is you don't have to be scientific or anything. You just get, you work on, you just twist it to fit what you want, but then you are responsible to make everything cohere relatively nicely together. So let's see if we have done that. So we have sahwama, sahwana, that's going to get the stress in the right place. Sanakwata, that's going to be fine. Nakwalapu, Yosatako, Apatoma, and Fasana Kwala. Okay, so that's good. So we're going to have this 10 vowel system in the 5 vowel with 2 quantity distinctions, short and long, in the proto-language. So then we have, we'll have that and anti-penultimate stress in the proto-language, and then that should get us somewhere interesting. But I see that we are now at 4 p.m. and I don't understand how this happened so quickly. Let's say a few parting words. I think this was a very, very interesting session with our language, which we now have a name for, Yustamiakal. What would that have been in the proto-language? I'll leave that as an exercise for you. See if you can reconstruct it and leave it in the comments if you're watching this on YouTube. If you're watching this on the stream, I don't expect you to do that so quickly. But yeah, this has been quite a lot of fun, and I'm excited to see how this language is starting to develop. The one thing that I find that there's always a danger of doing when you start reconstructing protoforms is you start wanting to make sibling languages. And already I can see that I want to have another language beside this one. And I'm resisting. I want to flesh this language out a little bit, but maybe we'll dip in and make some other languages for this this family that Yustamiakal is in.